The name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight individuals who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly. Enoch, you are definitely one of those persons.
My grandmother raised me. She raised me to be a hardworking person, a prideful person, take pride in my hard work. Funny to say, my favorite subject in school, other than physical education, was mathematics. I was good at it. I took pride in being good at math. And so I kind of related that to accounting. I did accounting with the mindset of this is going to be my foundation into the business world. I see accounting as a stepping stone into what I want to do eventually. After I graduated undergrad with my accounting degree, that summer I worked at a small CPA firm. And then I went to go work with a real estate development company. While working with the real estate development company, I decided to go back to school to pursue my MBA in sports management. I didn't want to follow that typical accounting route. Through this program, my MBA program that I'm in now, I really expanded my network, got to meet amazing professionals who are very successful in their career. And so one day I was looking through my email, the staff accountant position popped up for the Miami Dolphins. I'm like, holy snap. I applied for the job, and knowing my program director with the MBA program has connections throughout different people within the industry. So I reached out to him, bing bada boom, God did his thing, and 8 months later I've been working for the Miami Dolphins. My role is bigger than what I thought it would be. And so it's been a pleasant experience these past 8 months, and I look forward to, grinding my teeth, just keep my head down and working, getting better, more efficient for the company, being more efficient in my role, and just really enjoying the process.
Henok, how you doing today, buddy?
Well, how are you?
Good, man. Well, listen, thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. The name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute, where I highlight individuals who dream frictionless, plan thoroughly, execute relentlessly. And Enoch, you are definitely one of those persons. So thank you for taking the time. And I just want to get a chance to just give you your flowers for what you've done with your, amazing body of work, especially at the age that you're at. You're someone who is driven, focused, and young. So kind of just walk us through your journey, Enoch Germain. Like, how did you get to be the person we know today?
And thank you. First, it's an honor for you to choose me to be on your podcast. Basically, born and raised down here in South Florida. My grandmother raised me, and she really raised me to be a hardworking person and a prideful person. Take pride in my hard work. And so, that's really carried me through.
Where's your grandma from? Is she's from Florida originally, or she's from somewhere else? Where's your grandma from?
So my grandmother's from IET. So my whole family, both sides, are from IET. They moved here in the 90s, tried to settle up camp here, and little did they know, 30 years they still be here.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's always the parents from immigrant communities that push grandmas, and when I say parents, it's grandparents, family members who are from, outside the US, who should just push you to a lot of different things and make sure that you reach your highest potential. But kind of walk us through, the initial stages. Like, how did you know, let's for instance, that you would like rugby? Like, how did you get into rugby? Like, and what lessons you learned from playing rugby?
Yeah, so when I was playing football in high school, a couple of my teammates, they were also playing rugby in the spring because football is a fall sport. And so after the season was over, they'd go over and play rugby in the spring. And so the rugby team at the time was very accomplished. Like that year, my junior year, I believe it was 2017 or 2016, they had won the state championship. And so they were like, hey man, try out rugby. And so my junior year, instead of trying out rugby, I did track and field instead to work on my running technique, and just wanted to see how I do in the long jump and triple jump. didn't do too good, but I really was doing track and field so I can get faster, so I can get ready for football because I was really focused and determined on playing football. And so my senior year season came and went in football, and the spring came, in the spring of 2018, and they invited me to come and play again. I was like, all right, sure, let me see what it's about. And yeah, that is what started my rugby journey. Played that whole spring and played all throughout college.
Position you played in football, and then you could also answer the same for rugby.
So in football, I played running back. So I
Okay.
was that 5'8", 5'7", whatever height you want to put on it.
Yeah.
I was at 150. I was listed at 150, so I was like that speed back. But to give you a bit of context, my high school was and still is a prestigious high school for athletes to come over and play and win championships. My high school, St. Thomas Aquinas, is really known across the country for its football standards.
Got it.
Wins state championships every year, year in and year out. Almost goes to national championships every year. These championship bowls. So my first time playing football was actually in high school, and so the competition was definitely there. So it was a learning experience for me, and so I made the best out of the experience. And so yeah, I played running back, played special teams, but I was just like that small, shifty kid that tried to make an impact where I could.
Now that you're talking about football and running back, I got to talk about our boy Shake One. I mean, that boy is nasty work, man. He got every attribute to be is the I think the pinnacle of the running back position. Fast, strong, good vision, to
Mm-hmm.
move his feet after getting tackled. How did you feel about the Eagles win?
Rejuvenating. I don't have Chiefs fatigue. That's not a thing for me.
Yeah,
But I come from the perspective of loving to see a balance within the NFL. I
yeah.
mean, the Chiefs are a dynasty, and they all praises to them. But it was great to see the Eagles win in a dominant fashion. I mean, on all levels, offense, defense, special teams, they destroyed the Chiefs. And Saquon especially, I mean, wow. I mean, he was counted out when he was with the Giants and he tore his ACL, and they're like, man, maybe he's just going to be some back like Todd Gurley. I mean, no shade to Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was a great running back for the Rams. Man, Saquon is different.
Yeah, but you know what? With Saquon, his mentor was Adrian Peterson, like in the sense of who he looked up to. And that Adrian Peterson at one point tore his ACL. So to me, it's like you got to look at where this person's mindset is, right? Like he's thinking about this is my moment to have my Adrian Peterson moment. So he's not thinking that he can't recover from it. And history repeats itself. Like Adrian at the time also got counted out for tearing his ACL, right? And that dog mentality inside the person is like, I'm not going to give up, is why, I mean, I think every football player at the highest level has that in them. But, I think with the Eagles specifically, with Jalen Hurts and the team itself, obviously being beaten by the Chiefs in the past, Jalen Hurts not throwing as much as other football quarterbacks. He gets counted out a lot out of the picture of being a great quarterback. But I think people forget that football back in the day wasn't a heavy throwing sport. It was a run sport at one point. And there's a balance that's been lost with the throwing game that it kind of excludes everybody else. Everyone else is just like pawn pieces, and it's really quarterback and wide receiver and tight end who get the shine and glory. But when you have a quarterback that doesn't throw as much, everybody else kind of gets engaged in the game. So
Yes.
offensive line has to be good. Your defensive line has to be good. And from the scrum, if everyone's not pushing, even the movement, which is very interesting because you play both sports. So you know about scrumming and you know about American football. But the tush
Yeah.
push is a scrum. They
It
literally
is.
took what you do in rugby and carried it to
Yes.
football. And you can see that they're doing rugby moves in football, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And so that dynamic of having, and their coaches also understood rugby or came from a rugby background, certain parts of their offensive linemen understand together we're better than separate, you know? So it's very interesting and happy in my perspective that someone like Jalen Hurts, who is like yourself, beyond their age and wisdom. I was surprised to find out that Jalen Hurts was 26 years old. I'm like, this guy speaks and moves like a 45-year-old man, you know? Those things that really I was very excited to see because I think it was like a redemption for both Jalen and of course Shaquan. People doubting them and doubting their abilities, but they knowing themselves. And I love the quote what he made, which is, "Before everyone had an opinion, I had a purpose." That right
Yes.
there should go in every dream, every room you have in your house, because, like I said, the name of the podcast is Dream Plan Execute. Your dream is your purpose, right? And you're just executing on it. Now, question for you. Now, you're doing rugby, you're playing football. How did you mix that with accounting? What made you say, I want to do accounting as a career?
So I stumbled on accounting uh, intentionally because I know that I wanted to be in the industry of business. I wanted to be a businessman growing up. Actually, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. But when I was younger, I always thought as an entrepreneur, you had to invent something. And so when I got to college and learned that as an entrepreneur, it's really creating a business and selling a product, a passion that you have, and being able to market that and share that with the world. I saw accounting as where I can kind of build my foundation of the business world. So accounting is called the language of business. So understanding the numbers is 50% of the job. And so, I just dedicated myself to trying to be good at what was being taught. I mean, accounting is kind of looked at as a nerdy, sort of just straightforward, because accounting is different from finance in terms of you're looking at past transactions, trying to report accurately and with integrity, whereas finance is forecasting, budgeting, making investments. So, yeah, I did accounting with the mindset of this is going to be my foundation into the business world. I see accounting as my stepping stone into what I want to do eventually.
So
What
that's a
I'm
good
going
stepping stone. It is. Because even like Rockefeller, when he started before, and everyone knows Rockefeller as the Titan with an oil tycoon, but his first job, which he values the most, he was a bookkeeper. Bookkeeping is the precursor to accounting. Basically, if you want to know how a business is ran and all the juicy details of a business, go to accounting. Like you learn because the transactions all have to flow through accounting. So you learn
yes,
exactly where the money is being allocated and where it's being executed. And if you really want to be good at finance, you really need to know what you're spending your money is on and what money is coming in. You can't make an
exactly.
informed decision without accounting. It's like the lifeline, it's the vessels and the heart of the operations, and you can see what you can do financially, with your budget and what you need to cut back on and how does that affect the business. But you gotta have accounting tight and sharp for you to have, it's like the financial operations of a facility or a business. So that's a solid foundation. I'm just curious, like, was there a class in high school that you took that you thought of accounting? Did you see a mentor or someone who you grew up with that made you interested in accounting? Like, why
Oh,
accounting? No, you just came to you.
yeah. So, I've my it's funny to say my favorite subject in school, other than physical education, was mathematics because I was good at it. When you're good at something, you don't. I took pride in being good at math. And so I kind of related that to accounting. I was like, okay, there's addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. That's it. There's no other variables to it. It's just taking the numbers that you're giving and reporting on it, giving accurate reports to it. And so, no, I didn't have any mentors that I was around that led me towards accounting. I just picked it up and still going with it.
The good thing is, which is really interesting, is a lot of times good athletes are, if they're interested, they make very good mathematicians. So this the statement like mathlete, like an athlete who's also good at math, and there was a ton of those in my high school. So when I was in high school in Jamaica, a lot of my friends were mathletes. They played soccer or football. I say soccer for the fact that we're in America, but they played soccer and they were excellent at math. And it kind of pairs very well because math is a sport of or activity of doing, right? You got to work your way through the problem. The more you work your way through the problems, the better you get at executing it. And it feels the same like being an athlete. And so they paired it, and it's always interesting to see because a lot of persons who have right now, I think the way you move and approach your work is similar to an intellectual athlete, where skill development or prioritizing is the same way like an athlete would do on the field. You execute the same way you would execute in or on the field. For me, that was tennis. Once I got very good at tennis, so I'll give you a funny story. Back way back before high school, I was in primary school when I was a short, fat kid. I was short and fat. And my mom, I know everyone always like, Ramon, you were short and fat
Really?
110%. And my mom not wanting me to play any contact sports because I have sensitive skin. I can keloid very easily. She bought the
Okay.
tennis racket. She gave me the tennis racket and she's like, go play tennis. I'm like, I'm not even interested in this sport. Eventually, I went to the tennis court and I just got pushed all the way around the court by the coach because he would put the balls out all the way to positions I couldn't get to. Everyone would laugh and find it funny. But eventually, I just kept showing up. I just kept showing up and I kept practicing. Eventually, you lose the weight. Eventually, you start getting to the ball. And because you had that weight on and know you've lost weight, when I get to the ball, I hit the ball, I had a lot more force or power behind my shot than most people. Eventually, by consistently practicing every day for 5 days a week, I ended up becoming the coach or the captain of the team actually. And myself and the coach would have regular session with everyone else, and then we would play until night down against each other, right? Eventually, I became regional champion. Then I became national champion. So at that point, yeah, but things start off so slow. Like you start off as a chunky fat kid on the court that everyone laughs at, to like everyone looking at you like, no, this is different. Like, and then I got the principal awards for excellence at that point, right? That wasn't my
Hmm.
goal at the time. My goal was just to get to the ball initially, and then
Yeah.
after that, get around the court, and then eventually get good at the sport. I never initially even want to play the sport, but then I became very passionate with it because of the challenge that it presented, right? And then eventually you see yourself getting good at it, then you start really liking it, and then before you know it, you're like in it and you want to do it. And I feel similar to that is how you got into accounting, which is like you had an idea of what you wanted to do. You know you like math, you know you like entrepreneurship. It feels like being in sports where you have a problem that you need to solve, right? It's not just summarizing or memorizing data, but it's like I have a problem that's right in front of me to solve. And you kind of mish and mash all of that together to come to this conclusion. No, the interesting thing is we in the Western world don't have a word to quantify that. Like figuring out your way in life. But an Eastern philosophy they do. It's called ikigai in Japan, which means your life's purpose. And the life's
Hmm.
purpose, which is really interesting, is it's four intersecting circles. The first one is what you're good at, right? Obviously, you realize you're good at math. What you're passionate about, you realize you have a passion for business and numbers, right? What the world needs. Obviously, people need accounting. Businesses need it. You can't function as a business without it, and what people will pay you for. So a lot of times we focus on everything else, but it feels, derogatory to want to get paid for it. But that's not true. Like, if you have a highly functional skill like LeBron or Shaquan, why wouldn't you want to get paid for spending the time to become very good at it? Right? And at
Exactly.
that point, the middle of those intersecting circles is your ikigai. What you stumbled upon is your ikigai. You've found something you're good at, passionate about, the world need it, you love doing it, and that's your ikigai.
Awesome. Okay, it's powerful.
Yeah, no, so it's interesting how you got into that. So now from let's work your way through high school. Now you got to the point where you went to college. What was the hardest part about your accounting experience in college?
Hardest part was so there's something called the GAP, generally accepted accounting principles.
Yeah.
So understanding the rules of accounting integrity, accounting accuracy, that was probably the hardest part for me, trying to kind of commingle those rules with the numbers and okay, this is not acceptable in terms of reporting. And so that was probably the hardest part for me. But I remember in college when I started, this was my second semester of senior year before I graduated, I was taking tax and auditing. And those classes were actually pretty interesting to me just because typically in the trajectory of an accountant, you study for your accounting degree, your bachelor's, then either you get your master's in taxation or a master's in accounting, and then you go and study for the CPA. And so the accounting firms around, or the big four firms, if you want to go big four in the accounting industry, um, you either choose to work in the tax side or the audit side. And so learning through those two courses, my second semester, senior year, and seeing that the work that they have to do to, various auditing insurance, where they are looking through the balance sheet of these Fortune 500 companies, these clients of these big accounting firms, and pretty much, taking their time and tracking all the accounts and reconciling it to their system or their bank accounts. And so that was really interesting for me. And so that that kind of go to was, it kind of helped me understand why I was in accounting, why it reaffirmed my interest in accounting. Um, because although, accounting is very essential, accounting is it's like I said, the foundation, the language of business, it can be very mundane, it's very tedious, and it gets very boring at times. But that was also a challenge for me, because for me, I was like, all right, where is this taking me? Where am I going? I'm learning all of this, but I'm starting to lose interest. But when I took those courses of tax auditing, and then there's this third aspect of consulting that really opened my eyes, and I was like, okay, now I can see where I can really take accounting and where I can apply all this knowledge and take it to these specific segments within the industry and create a niche for myself.
Okay. Yeah, and it's always like that with, I think, a lot of different every program that you'll never get away from minutia, even when you're passionate about a topic. Like, even in engineering, I took certain classes that I had no interest in. Like, and again, there is that, like, what am I learning this for? Like, certain things you take, you're like, what is this going to give me? And the best thing I could see from it is it's the activity of doing it helps you with the thing that you're going to do later, right? So the way you approach a mathematical problem or engineering problem, it's a training on how to approach a problem. So, like, the key insight that I took from when I played tennis, I use it till this day with everything that I do, which is skill development is the highest priority. You develop
Mm-hmm.
skill to a point that it becomes muscle memory, and you execute on it, it adds value to what you're doing, right? And there's a large learning curve, but you get over that learning curve by consistently doing activities on that specific point, and then it becomes a part of you. And we do it all the time, more so when we were younger than when we were older, because we learned how to walk, and it was a persistent activity that we did until now. We don't even think about walking; we just do it, right? And so the stuff that we see Saquon do is something he's practiced all the time. Now that it's on the stage of execution, it looks easy. But before that, it is the cleans, it is the box jumps, it is all the different squat activities he's doing, the field work for years that going to seeing that state of flow, or when he's able to spin off and jump over somebody or hurdle them backwards. That's not an accident. That's something he's practiced in the past or even thought about doing before he did it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having the legs to do it. So I recognize, well, if you take that specific skill of in sports, you can apply it to any sort of activity that you decide to venture into, right? And so you venture into accounting or engineering, that's the mindset. That's the shift that makes you special in learning and executing activities. That's why I feel that skill development and power development, or someone coming from a sports background, especially like football, it really translates well into corporate America and activities you do, because you understand lifting weights gets you strong. Well, there's physical weights you lift to get strong, but what's the equivalent of that in corporate is intellectual loads, right? Time management, negotiation, auditing. All these are different weights that you lift to get better. And then once you return a certain level, people value you for that skill of being able to manage all these different loads. So yeah, it's interesting how the dualities work between the two. And so yeah, I'm happy you highlighted that, it's the truth. Like, I'm sure sometimes Saquon comes to the gym, he's tired and he's not interested in putting 400 pounds on his back, but he still does it, right?
Yeah.
So then it seems very interesting, because from now, you're about to graduate, right? You're about to get your degree in accounting. And then there's a number of different avenues you could go down and different organizations that you could have applied to for a job. But then you landed at the Miami Dolphins, which kind of goes full circle with your interest in football. So then, how did you go about, like, did you intend to land at the Miami Dolphins? Was that a thing for you, or is it like, how did you approach that
Man,
transition?
so let me give you a timeline. So after I graduated undergrad with my accounting degree,
Yeah.
for that, because I graduated in the spring. So that summer for 3 months, June, July, August, or May, June, July, August, I worked at a small CPA firm, pretty much working on corporate and individual tax returns. That was really interesting because in terms of those three segments of accounting, I was really more interested in tax. So that was a good spot to land in, get my feet wet within within the tax industry.
Right.
So um, I learned a lot within those 3 months, valued that experience. And then I went to go work with a real estate development company working on pretty much construction billing. And so I was doing that for a year and a half, almost 2 years. While working with the real estate development company, I decided to go back to school to pursue my degree in my MBA in sports management, just because, I didn't want to follow that typical uh, accounting route.
Okay.
Go get a master's in accounting. That wasn't too much of an interest to me. It wasn't a calling to me. When I found out that Florida Atlantic University, my alma mater, has a great sports MBA program, I was like, okay, let me try this out. I applied and I got in, and so I was working while going to school full time. So I was doing both full time. And the spring of my second semester in the program, one thing about the MBA program is they have a great network within the sports industry. I mean, that was the reason why I even applied to go back to school because I really wanted to fine tune my network. I found out about, go off on a little bit of rant here, but I found out about LinkedIn my sophomore year of undergrad. Little by little, I was, building connections through LinkedIn. And through this program, my MBA program that I'm in now, I really expanded my network, got to meet amazing professionals who are very successful in their careers in the sports industry within different sports, not only football, but tennis, soccer, agents of these world-renowned athletes. And so that is one thing I appreciated from the program.
Right.
And so that spring of my second semester within in the program, I saw, so there's this networking platform that we were given to sign up on, and it shows listings of job postings within the sports industry throughout the country. And so one day, random Friday, I was looking through my email and checked out the new postings that were around the sports industry. The staff accountant position popped up for the Miami Dolphins. I'm like, holy snap.
Right.
Like, this is, like, there was no notification, there was no thing. I just stumbled upon this.
Right. Yep.
I'm a big believer in God.
100%.
I'm a God-fearing man. And the only rationale I can put onto this is a sign from God. Go apply. So I applied for the job, and knowing that my program director with the MBA program has connections throughout different people within the industry. And I was like, maybe he does have a connection within the Miami Dolphins. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, I just applied for the staff accountant position with the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
If you have a connection within the organization, could you send my application their way and kind of push me through the line? And bing, bada, boom, God did his thing. And 8 months later, I've been working for the Miami Dolphins.
God bless. And I wanna ask you what that experience is like, but I love your storyline and timeline and the things that you highlighted. So number one is most people going to an MBA program thinking it's just the technicalities of the program, but it's also the network of people that you meet who are in an MBA program. That's one of the main things that an MBA program provides. So you definitely use the MBA in the way it was supposed to. Not just the management experience and the classes, but the network of people. Next thing that you highlighted, which is super new and most people are not paying attention, LinkedIn is a super tool that people should learn to use because, again, it's an ability for recruiters and other people to find you on LinkedIn and get an idea of who you are prior to even engaging with you. And you're able to connect with people in a way that you weren't before. So I always think of like there are these life-changing events that happen in history and the world will never go back from it. So like World War II was a life-changing event, right?
Yes.
Pre and post-COVID is two different times. Like pre-COVID, people would be maybe cautious of LinkedIn and want to meet you in person. Post-COVID, people are more available and willing to connect with you digitally before they even meet you in person because they've gotten used to interactions digitally, right? So that's just a thing that is if you're still using a pre-COVID mindset, the person who isn't using a pre-COVID mindset and using a post-COVID mindset has an edge. They have a competitive edge. So going to a company's website and applying blind and not following up on LinkedIn is just like boxing with one hand. It's just that you're not working your network the best as you can. The thing that you did, which was even more commendable, is going back to your professor, finding out where his network is, and then also finding and getting an endorsement to help open that door for you, right? Because it's not just your hard work and your ability. It's also your ability to socialize. It showed a lot of seeing ahead. Like, hey, there's always somebody also competing for this position. Well, can I get a competitive edge by also getting a recommendation from a highly valued staff member at a very reputable college, also in the MBA program for sports management? Now, a lot of people would see that and say that's luck. It's not luck. It's your hard work meeting an opportunity. And
Yeah.
occasionally, these opportunities are aligned with your hard work. And a lot of people have hard work and the opportunities align, but they don't execute. Like they have a self doubt, like, this is not for me. I don't have the years of experience. Maybe it's a little bit too forthright for me to go back to my professor and ask him for a recommendation. Those self doubts would also make sure you don't get the position, right? It's your ability to want it and then go after it. In Jamaica, we say closed mouths don't get fed. You got to open your mouth to eat. So you went to eat. You're like, listen, I love this idea. I love this position. It's all the things I love: accounting, football. Just bring it back a full circle. We started with your love for football, right? And rugby, and also your love for math. And you've spent years developing this love for math, right? Went through an accounting experience, got through college, and here's an alignment and a moment where you can get everything you like in one shot. And you execute it. So that's what I'm talking about when you talk about dream, plan, execute is your initial frictionless thought of wanting to work as an accountant and love for football. Your plan where you went to school for accounting. I mean, it was the moment for you to execute. You did it. You executed on it, right? And these opportunities come up just like that. When I started on my company, it was a random Thursday night. Like I just see the opening. Most times people are like, "Oh, you need to know somebody to recommend you to work at that company," because the company that I work for, they built the World Trade Center, the old ones and the new one, right? So a lot of the tall buildings in New York is Acom Tishman who built it, right? We have a building that's 1,000 foot tall building beside Grand Central. We built it, right? They also tied in with the Barclays Center. We did that construction there also through AECOM. AECOM went and bought different companies. My company that he bought, Tishman Construction, majority luxury skyscrapers in New York, right? But to
Mhm.
get there, most people ask you like who you knew. I knew nobody in the company. I literally just went online, a random Thursday. I saw the opening. I was like, what do I have to lose? And you apply, and then someone picks up your resume. But prior to that, you have a body of work that would allow somebody to be like, okay, this is somebody who is exceptional at what they've done so far. We would like them on our team. So no, kudos to you for executing like that. So now my next question for you is like, what's it like working as a staff accountant for Miami Dolphins?
Man, they've been good to me. It's been great. So far I have had the opportunity to work on a bunch of things for the organization because the Miami Dolphins is different from the other 31 teams in the NFL. So, in terms of business structure, so connected to the Miami Dolphins, obviously they play at Hard Rock Stadium. That is the stadium they've played at since 1980s, the late 80s. So with that, with there's other two bigger, but there are other two big entities tied to the Miami Dolphins and Hard Rock Stadium: Formula One and Miami Open, which year in and year out have become bigger and better than the previous year.
Yes,
And so Hard Rock Stadium has become a global entertainment
pub.
venue.
Yeah.
So being able to work on, because primarily my role as a staff accountant is working on the stadium accounts, foundation, the Miami Dolphins Foundation, those accounts, and the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, which is a uh, charity that we partner with the Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center every year and do a charity drive for, and different parking entities as well. So there's so many entities, big or small, tied in with the Miami Dolphins. So my role is bigger than what I thought it would be,
Right.
and so it's been a pleasant experience these past 8 months, and I look forward to grinding my teeth, just keep my head down and working, getting better, more efficient, for the company, being more efficient in my role. Um, and yeah, just really enjoying the process because right now, there's with the age of social media the way it is now, you see everybody in their highlights.
Right.
And now I am, when you see that, you get kind of disappointed in yourself, I guess. But I understand that right now I'm in my process to creating those highlights for myself.
Right.
So I've learned from hearing other people, other successful people that I've been around, to enjoy the process. That specifically brings me to, I remember Jason Taylor, a Hall of Fame defensive end for the Miami Dolphins. He actually he was the defensive he was a defensive line coach at my high school when I was there.
Very
And being
nice.
around him was amazing. And I remember seeing him, he had an interview, he was being interviewed. And he said one of the underrated things about his career was his dedication to the process. Knowing that every day it is a grind to get up at 4 or 5 in the morning to put that work in. But him talking about the process and falling in love with the process, even though he hated it,
Yeah.
I mean, that changed my mindset since that day.
That's a bar right there. Because that's where the help of a coach or a mentor helps. It's interesting, like people are okay, or it's okay to wrap your mind around like a boxer or a professional athlete having a coach. But then when you think about, if you think of yourself like an intellectual athlete, right? Why wouldn't you have a speaking coach or a executive career coach? Like if you're, all these boxers, by the time they get to, let's say, past their, into the pro ranks, they know how to box better than 95% of the people out there, right? Why still have a coach? You still have a coach because it's like a second set of eyes catching these vital mistakes that you could make at the highest level, right? You have an edge over somebody who does not have a coach, right? Who does not have a mentor. So being around people like that constantly, there's just a mental edge you're going to have over a lot of people who don't have, a mentor or a coach in their vicinity, right? And a coach doesn't have to be like, there's somebody who's lived the experience is willing to pass on, key insights. The interesting thing about the Miami Dolphins, the owner, Steve Ross, he owns a big construction slash developer role in New York called Related. Related is one of the biggest developers. They just recently did the biggest development in New York since Rockefeller Center called Hudson Yards. That Hudson Yards development is the buildings that they built over there. A large portion of it was done by my company. So just like a lot of the full circle moments, are happening in this conversation because yeah, you could Miami Dolphins is and he as a person, he started his company in it's not something he got passed on to him. It's something he did in his lifetime. And you have the opportunity to be around some of the best execution or people who execute at the highest level, not just in sports, but in business. I remember what you just said, right? At the beginning, you were interested in business. You're also interested in sports. Now you have an opportunity to be around one of the most successful businessmen in the world, right? You make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. New York construction and New York development is cutthroat and the hardest place to build, right? So you have somebody that you're probably 1 degree of separation from, right? That knows business, right? And you're also in a position where one of your passions of football is at the forefront of what the activities that your mind and your tracking is. Next thing is like Formula One. That Miami Formula One tour is going to be massive. It's getting more and more traction. It's an amazing product that they've developed down there. And then the Miami Open is even massive too when it comes to tennis. So it's just a lot of like eyes on Miami right now. I from New York. I have my mom lives in Fort Lauderdale, so I visit often. And actually went, I was carrying her down Highway 8, and I carried her down as far as I could before I had to cut down into downtown Miami. And me, as a construction person, was at awe Like I'm from New York, and I'm like, yo, Miami's not playing no games down here. Miami's not playing no games down here. This looks like
Yeah.
mini Manhattan right now, and I can say that
Yes.
from someone from New York. Miami's doing its thing. Miami's definitely, it's a nice place to be. You want to, as a young person, be in places where there's a lot of persons getting after it. And that's usually in places of big cities, right? So like a Miami, a New York, Texas, Dallas, Texas, big key. You can even say San Francisco. All these areas, you're going to find a collective of people with your mindset getting after it. So, but I'm curious about moments where I'm sure along the way you had like a stumbling or you didn't quite execute at your best ability. Like, how do you recover from moments like that? Like, what's your process to recover from moments like that?
For me, never really had a framework of how do I restart, but for me, it was just accepting the loss and let's do it again, trial and error. And so that was how I was able to recover in college and professionally, especially because what I learned on the field was, hey man, in terms of rugby, being a winger, fullback, I was always that speed guy on the end. God forbid the times that I did get caught on the edge, whether that defender did take a good angle at me and I wasn't able to get past him and I got tackled, I wouldn't let that phase me. I would go back the next rep, the next minute after when I get the ball again, you know, go at it again.
Right,
Kind of restructure how my plan of attack was and execute.
right. And so I think it's interesting because you've, like I said, you've taken what you've learned in sports and it's naturally a part of how you approach things now because of the experience that you've had playing a sport at the highest level. And it's different because it wasn't an individual sport, it was a team sport, right? Like one of the beautiful things I love about rugby and football as a sport is the team dynamics, but the different body diversity. So, for instance, if you did track, there's only a certain body type who's going to be good at the 400 meter, the 200, the 100. And similarly, like if you did any other sport like swimming, there's only a certain body type who's going to be basketball. But with football, you could be big and chunky, and there's a position that you can play, right? You could be short and speedy, and there's a position that you're best advantageous for, right? It has a difference. Your differences doesn't make you weak in the sport, right? And so that's the beauty of like playing a sport like rugby or football is like you get to see that certain people have different skill sets, and if you put them in the wrong position, it doesn't highlight their strength, right? You need to place
Yes.
the person in the position that they'll be successful in, right?
Yeah.
So I growing up like watching football, I was like I appreciate that about American football and a sport like rugby. It's like everyone really, if you want to play this sport, you can. It's if you want it, right? Any books or any interest in like mentors that you along the way that really help you? I know you spoke about the Miami Dolphin defensive end, but what about like books that you've read that kind of kept you inspired? Like what keeps your inspiration going?
Books. Well, I am reading several different types of books, but what really helped me professionally have been podcasts. I love a good business podcast. I love a podcast that highlights an athlete's journey through their professional career and into their business career.
Mm,
Getting to hear their experience and their trials and tribulations have been very it's helped me navigate my own career. And so a book that I'm actually reading right now, I'm actually having an assignment to do, and this is the book I'm going to choose upon is actually this book right here. It's a new book. It's called You Deserve to Be Rich.
mm.
And
That's from our boys from Ernie Leisure. Good stuff,
Yes,
man.
exactly.
That's good stuff right there.
Rashad Villa and Troy Millings. So I've been introduced to EYL, Earn Your Leisure, when I was an undergrad in school.
Very
And
nice.
I was a part of this group in school called Urban Male Initiative. Urban Male Initiative. And the mentor in that in our group referred us to Earn Your Leisure. And so, should I say, I've been following them since 2019 when they right when they just started and
Started.
seeing what they've become. One was um, a PE teacher,
Yes.
and the other one was a financial advisor. And now they've built this empire.
Yes.
And so I really gravitated to athletes or people who have turned nothing into something, and built an empire, who have empires. And so
Yes.
I strive to not only be successful, but build my own empire to give back to
Uh,
others.
that's amazing. I'm happy you brought that book up. That is an amazing book. And
Yeah.
Troy and Rashard are amazing. And I love one thing I love about them is their consistency. So, like Market Mondays, every Monday they have Market Mondays. And their moment, I'm like, there's no way they're going to have it today. It's like Valentine's Day or something. And they literally show
Mm-hmm.
up every Monday and they provide value. It's not just talking, but it's value that people are listening to hear. And on the information they drop in Market Mondays used to be hush hush information that you would have to be in the right circles to get.
Yeah.
And there is a deficit in our community to learn this information and execute on it. No, no one has the excuse of not knowing the information. You go to Market Mondays and you listen through every episode, you know what you need to do. No, it's no, are you willing to execute on what you know, right?
Exactly.
And that's one of the beauties of having a team like Rashad, team like Troy, like you said, you know, coming from more experience. Troy family is an immigrant family. His family is Jamaican, right? And coming here and building it out the ground, out the mud, and turning it into what it is now, which is they have Shaq on stage, they have 50 Cent on stage, they have the richest black billionaire in the world on stage. These are not accidents. This is a product of their hard work and consistent work over a long period of time. And you can't excuse that and you can't see that and not being like, okay, all right. I mean, it's doable. It's like, are you willing to execute? Are you willing to put the work in that's going to allow you to get to that level? And if you do the work, opportunities meet your good work. I always say that if the universe is growing infinitely in all directions, where you stand technically is the center of the universe, right? And you can either be a black hole or a sun. A black hole takes and takes and takes and gives nothing to the universe around it. Any universe that has a black hole, nothing is inspiring, nothing is being grown around it, right? Just takes. But a sun, its light, its energy gives off and inspires and grows things. And so that's what they did. They, became the center of their own universe and decided to inspire and grow. And off their energy is why we have a book like that can inspire and grow us to be the best version of ourselves at the center of our universe too. So it's just,
Yeah.
I love that you have that book and you're working through it because that's a gem right there. That is a book that I don't even have the book yet, but I listen to them all the time and I plan on
Yeah.
buying it. But I'm happy that you have it because that's
Yeah, no. I've gone through a little bit of it, but they highlight different perspectives within our community, marginalized communities, and are dissecting through these different circumstances and how each has navigated it
right.
and the opportunities that are available.
I love it. And then that's the transition from surviving to thriving, right? Like, we can't forget that this is Black History Month, right? And years back, 100 years back, this conversation we're having, the organizations that we are a part of and what we're doing, we wouldn't have this opportunity, right? We would never even dream of having this opportunity. So know that we're in these positions where you can go to school, you can learn how to read. That's not even a problem for us anymore. Like having to be able to pick up a book and learn a knowledge. You know, I'd be damned if my ancestors didn't get a chance to be proud of me. You know what I mean? Because they went
Exactly.
through the mud. If we think we're
Yes.
taking it out the mud, they took it out the mud. You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
now we have this opportunity to execute.
Mm-hmm.
Execute. Don't play with this opportunity because people dream for this opportunity, right? People dream in Haiti and Jamaica for having the opportunity to do what we do, right? So I take that, I take that personal. I take that like a chip on my shoulder, if you want to say, like I want to do it not just for me, but to inspire others to do it too. Because this is not easy, but it's worth it. That's good, man. I'm happy to hear you doing well. You keep doing your thing.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. I hope that you keep, and I know you will keep inspiring. And I've been watching your growth. You keep doing what you do, brother, because it's being noticed, and you are somebody who does do everything when I say dream, plan, execute. So thank you for your time on the pod.
Thank you, Ramon. It's been a pleasure of mine and it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, brother. Keep safe.
You too. Thank you.